town of Elkwood had a secret, one that newcomers like me were never supposed to uncover. I'd moved there for a quieter life, renting a small, weathered house on the edge of a dense forest. It was picturesque, tranquil, perfect for escaping the chaos of the city. But it didn't take long to notice something strange. The smiles. Everyone in Elkwood smiled, all the time. At first it seemed charming people at the grocery store, walking their dogs, or even jogging past my house always wore pleasant, cheerful expressions. But the smiles never faltered. Not when it rained, not when a car broke down in the middle of Main Street. I even saw a man cut his hand open with a chainsaw while trimming a tree. He smiled through the blood and pain, cradling his mangled hand like it was a minor inconvenience. It didn't feel right. One evening, my neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, came to my door with a plate of cookies. She was the epitome of a friendly small-town grandmother, always smiling. But that night, her smile was too wide, too rigid, like her face had been carved into the expression. "You've been here a month now," she said, her voice overly sweet. "Have you seen them yet?" "Seen who?" I asked, hesitantly taking the cookies. Her smile twitched, her eyes darting to the forest. "The smiling ones. They come at night. Don't ever look at them." Before I could ask more, she turned and hurried down the path, humming an old lullaby. That was the last time I saw Mrs. Calloway. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her warning looping in my head. Don't look at them. What did she mean? Who were the smiling ones? Around 2 a.m., I woke to a strange noise outside like laughter, but not quite right. It was distorted, almost mechanical, rising and falling in unnatural patterns. My pulse quickened as I crept to the window and peeked out through the curtains. The moon cast an eerie glow over the yard, and at first I saw nothing. But then, movement near the tree line caught my eye. A figure stood there, watching my house. Its face was shrouded in shadow, but even from that distance I could make out the unmistakable shape of a smile. It was too big, too bright, and it didn't move like a normal mouth. It glowed faintly, like phosphorescent paint. I froze, heart pounding. The figure took a step closer and another. It wasn't walking, it glided, its body unnaturally stiff. More laughter erupted, this time closer, and I realized it wasn't coming from the figure. It was coming from all around me. I yanked the curtains shut and stumbled back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The laughter grew louder, filling the room as if it were pouring in through the walls. Then I heard the front door creak open. I grabbed the nearest weapon I could find, a rusty fireplace poker, and crept toward the hallway. The door was swinging slowly on its hinges, and outside, the yard was empty. No figures, no glowing smiles, but the laughter continued. I slammed the door shut and locked it, barricading it with a chair. For the rest of the night, I sat on the floor, gripping the poker, praying for the sun to rise. The laughter didn't stop until dawn. The next morning, I went into town, desperate for answers. People smiled at me as usual, but when I tried to bring up what I'd seen, their smiles faltered for the briefest moment before returning, wider than ever. "Oh, you must have had a bad dream," the butcher said, handing me my change. His teeth were too white, too perfect. Nothing to worry about. At the library, I scoured old newspapers, but there was nothing, no mention of the smiling ones or anything strange about Elkwood, just pages of cheery, mundane stories. As I left the library, I spotted a man sitting on a bench, his head bowed. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't smiling. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. I hesitated before approaching him. "They came for you, didn't they?" he whispered before I could say a word. "Once you see them, they don't stop." "Who are they?" I asked, my voice trembling. He shook his head. "They're not people. They look like us, but they're wrong. They feed on fear, on attention. If you look at them, you're theirs. The smiles they take over. You won't be able to stop smiling." I wanted to press him further, but his face twisted in sudden terror. "They're watching," he hissed. "Don't talk about them. Don't even think about them." Before I could respond, he bolted down the street, disappearing into the crowd. That night, I boarded up every window and door. I sat in the dark, clutching the poker, trying not to think about the figures or their glowing smiles. But the laughter returned, louder than ever. It felt like it was inside my head. The boards on the windows rattled, something scraped against the walls. Then I heard a soft knock at the front door. "Let us in," a voice sang. It was melodic, almost hypnotic. "We just want to smile with you." I stayed silent, not daring to move. The knocking grew more insistent, the voice more demanding. "We see you, little one. Don't you want to be happy?" The laughter crescendoed, drowning out everything else. I pressed my hands to my ears, but it didn't help. My vision blurred, and I felt a pressure building in my chest. I couldn't breathe. And then silence. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. The boards were intact, the door still locked. But when I caught my reflection in the mirror, my blood ran cold. I was smiling, and I couldn't stop.